And so, yeah, so right before we begin, and why don't you pan the room, Brian? Because we actually are hybrid today. I don't know how much you've gotten to see. You're getting to be our the last person of our hybrid event today. So we actually have a live studio audience, plus everybody in the Click meeting piece. And I'm really excited to learn really what about your company and the things that have changed since the last time we met. And you're a company out of Estonia. So introduce yourself and run through about 5 minutes about your wonderfully detailed, beautiful tiny homes. I am just enamored with the product you have.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. It's a pleasure always to talk to you, and I won't waste time more on compliments. I'm really delighted to be here. And KODA by Kodasema, award-winning houses. They're movable housing solutions, quick, easy, flexible, sustainable, and stackable. Kodasema as a company is a multidisciplinary and award-winning design firm specializing in the architecture of modular, volumetric KODA housing. We're a startup since 2014. We've come as far as 10 countries, physically present, and distributors in 25, that including 2 continents, and we're slowly, 2 continents being North America and Europe, and we're slowly also now testing Australian first footsteps. So it's very, very exciting. And the last year, since our last talk in Chicago, things have totally changed. And I was just looking at my opening line in one of the American conferences last year, and I was saying that the way we live and the way we use space is not always obvious, and it's not always natural that we have the space. But now, 1 year later, the meaning of space around us and the housing around us has a completely different meaning, because everything has kind of become blurry. Like, it's no longer black and white. Our homes have been, our offices and schools and whatnot. So it has been a very, very interesting year. And when listening to you, Michael, talking to Dominic about the numbers and about the growth in Poland, I just quickly put together some thoughts about our ups and downs, and I realized it was quite a big fall last year, but then apparently we've come up threefold as compared to what it was before. So on daily basis, you don't take that much time to contemplate about these figures, because the operational and then the visionary things, they take up most of the time. So yeah, we're focusing on the tiny housing. Some people call it tiny. Some people think about caravans immediately when you talk about tiny housing, and then we're carried along with this prejudice. When working with cities, when getting permits, it's not caravans, it's very high quality, and clearly offers a lot of solutions for multi-purpose use in the public sector, in the private sector, for living, working, dynamic cities, just as the population grows, and schooling, of course, is another example. So yes.
Yeah, and they're immaculate. I mean, the product that you've put together is, I always get my square foot to square meters upside down, but these are mainly only 400 square feet or 35 square meters. I always get this wrong. So how many?
Well, we've developed quite a bit. So we've halved the size of the tiniest unit. So the tiniest unit would be about the half what you said. So it's, I think, I haven't calculated it in square feet, but the American model right now is 350 square feet, which is 26 square meters. And now we've in Europe even reduced the size by 30% to match an interesting segment. Like in some countries, it's possible to put the house without applying for a permit. And it just exactly needs to be under the 20 square meters.
So it's a shed. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a shed, so it's actually like a normal studio apartment with a full kitchen and a sleeping loft upstairs, and you can use it for working and living.
Oh, I understand that. I have a lot of economic development folks in this room with us today, and realizing that since you're the tiny home or the KODA is under 500 square feet, I could just use that and go get a over-the-counter permit in the county of Lake, which is where we are today, and go put that in my backyard on an over-the-counter permit. So I could walk in with a piece of paper that says, this square is where I'm putting this, and I'm going to bring water and sewer to it, and then you could be bringing in your semi-truck to land it, a week later. And that's very interesting.
That's exactly what has happened to us. So when before the pandemic, we were more operating with smaller structures like inquiries between anything like between 1 and 10, of course, occasionally maybe 20. So now our focus kind of has changed. We're overloaded and completely overwhelmed with inquiries on the large scale for projects ranging from 50 to even 500 units. But an interesting thing when you talk about this, the Canadians say laneway housing about it, or the British call it the Caravan Act then, but even though it's nothing to do with the caravan. So indeed, and the Germans, I really need to mention our public sector collaboration in Germany, which I think is a great example and that I would really like to focus in the US when working with municipalities, councils, to get the re-densification project of cities off the ground in the US. And we have a great example of a German innovation. I mean, if you think of Germany, you don't really think of an innovating municipal government. That's not really the first thought of yours. So what has happened is within 6 months, the city of Hanover in Lower Saxony, they actually got a building license to put 4 KODAs in the backyard of a 5-story apartment building, where it's an area where otherwise nobody would be able to build because there is no access. So now next week, which is 11 months later, we're shipping the houses to Hanover. It will be all over social media and hopefully in German television as well. So they're lifting the houses on top of the 5-story building into the backyard. And so you know what happened? Within 2 weeks, 600 people in Hanover applied to become residents in these 4 houses. So it's just an amazing thing. And apparently there are so many locations available where such a thing could be replicated. And I think the US has loads of opportunities, not only in your backyard to set up as an office or a granny home or getaway for your children, but in the cities, to simply use the area which is there and which is otherwise unused. And we would really like to move on to public collaborations in the area. In the US.
Yeah, well, I think the main thing with bringing them here is talking with the villages in advance. One of the things within the Chicago MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area, there's over 256 different municipalities. That means 256 different building codes and 256 different zoning codes. And what I was excited to hear about your homes is that at under 500 square feet in unincorporated Lake County, that's already zoned for those type of pieces that I could just, we'd sometimes call them a granny flat or a carriage home. So for the U.S. audience, a caravan home would be in Great Britain, but here we call them carriage homes. And these are independent dwelling units. Your products are magnificently appointed. I mean, they're very high design, sleek, modern, beautiful pieces that, should I ever, when my son graduates college and I need to put him at home, I may put him in the backyard. And the fun thing is he's helping us out in the back, so he's seeing me. And so probably so. And so but this also, what's such the opportunity for the municipalities here, and I've talked about this with Whiteside County, and that's another person within our steering committee, is how much this also can help with some workforce housing where the workforce is transitory, meaning we have a kind of a dislocation at some times, and I know I'll get rebuffed later on this, where some areas have a overabundance of labor of a certain skill level, and then we have other areas in the state of Illinois that don't have as many workers. They have more jobs than workers, and so they don't really want to give up and move out of their home safety net in one area to relocate to another for a job, but say working with some of the manufacturers who need, say, 20, 30 employees, but being able to integrate with a 4-day, 10-hour work week so they can come out on a van and come and stay as almost an office hoteling or a hoteling situation for 3 days or 3 nights in the remote city, and then they can come back to their homes on the weekends, just because then they're able to keep those social bounds connected while they're working through the new job opportunity. But what's so wonderful about what you've solved is the buildings are really, fully insulated, beautifully appointed, but quick connects like an RV to be able to connect for the infrastructure. So it's really lightweight on a municipality piece, and you're only needing, we'd have to work through it with a pad or a ground or a foundation under these types of pieces, but they're self-supporting. They're under 400 square feet. And what's beautiful about that is you have a building that promotes people not staying in them all the time, but getting out and into the community and becoming part of the community. So it's a really dynamite solution.
Yes, and when you talk about these additional homes in the backyard, we've also now been designing our KODA according to the Appendix Q in the US, and I know it's adopted in some states and not adopted elsewhere. And when it comes to building code, it's actually not always black and white, and it's not always straightforward, just like fire safety requirements in the buildings demanded by the municipalities. The most important thing is that it's logical that people get out, but then the way
Yeah, it's a shame I didn't put up in the chat what these things look like. So imagine a modern designed building. So, we're talking mid-century modern building with high-end finishes. We're talking stainless steel refrigerators, granite, perfectly appointed, sleek buildings that are just impeccable. And so these things, you basically be able to order them out of the factory. They're factory made, able to then just be delivered and installed on a site. And these things are under, to give it a sense of scale, they're the size of 2 parking spaces. Yeah, that was the one thing a lot of people don't quite understand, is how little or how much they can actually pack in this. So they have some lofts and style pieces, but they also have they also have some extended versions where they have a dedicated back for bedroom. So most of these are studios with a loft area for the sleeping area, and then they have some extended pieces that add, and then they can also stack them and turn them into hotels. So, or hotels or small apartment buildings. So we're looking at about, basically it's cubes. So there you are again. So sometimes that happens.
I was about to say, just to pick up where I left off, where I think I left off is that what's important with this housing is when you talk about the workers is when people come to work during the week and then other people come to stay for the weekend. So it's actually an optimum balance. And so that was one of the points I wanted to make. And the other one is by living smaller, we automatically consume less. So when you mentioned that it's a good motive to get out when the space is not so big, but it's also a great motive to be more environmentally friendly and more sustainable, because you don't ultimately need a big house in order to store your skis or your snowboard. You can just enjoy the room itself and just have more and experience more, or have less and experience more.
Mm-hmm. So And I know I'd like to learn more about some of your plans for the U.S. market for second half of 2021 and what you're looking forward to in 2022.
Yes. So 2021, it has been an important year for us in the US because we have finally, or a couple of months ago, achieved our seal drawings and the process of licensing the KODA production into New York, Brooklyn, a company called Full Stack Modular, whom some of you may know. This has been quite a difficult exercise because we want to really be particular and show that our design, patent, and IP and the user experience comes across the way it is, and the pandemic clearly hasn't made it easier. But we worked through the entire sets of drawings, and it's not only the tiny 350 square feet house. We also have a one-bedroom unit, which also is delivered on a truck, but it's more suitable for the family. So now, yes, we're really moving on into the production. The materials for the first units have been ordered, so the first units will get delivered in a couple of months, as soon as the container arrives. And we would clearly like to grow based on these units. The first unit will be in upstate New York, up in September, and the couple of following units in the same region as well. So our first units, they're not California code compliant, but the difference wouldn't be extremely big. So there, from a constructional point of view, there is some variety. And yes, we're trying to hit volumes now, and we need strong strategic partners. And I was mentioning the city, and obviously for us, it would need to be the trigger of the city. It would need to be the innovative real estate or housing department of a city, or perhaps even a special advisor or a person like it is in Germany. So that would be a great example. I think what's done for the people, and where the cities actually create a space which is more livable and more lovable. So that would be one great direction where to develop, but also together with strategic partners in real estate development, or why not senior homes. And we're really looking at scaling up together with larger strategic partners. And we have our joint venture in the US now for over a year. It's called Kodasema LLC, registered in Delaware, but operating out in New York. And I think that's a great foot on the ground.
Well, the last thing, and I know we're running out of time for our session today, but you and I had talked offline about this, which was in the United States right now, we're having such a challenge with lumber. Lumber's up, 5x what it was at this time last year. And then you had talked about that you have these structural insulated panels that allow for you to avoid some of the high cost of lumber. So why don't you talk a little bit about why this product works so well in this market right now?
Yes, so what we have done is we are really adapting ourselves to different technologies. And I think one of the key solutions in housing is, and the world really has this 800 million people without a house, or 1.8 billion in substandard housing. So we need to be becoming more affordable and using different technologies. In particular, what we are using is magnesium oxide SIP. These are structural panels. So we don't actually install a separate steel frame or timber frame around it. The panels itself are structural. Of course, from a building point of view, they're a little bit more tricky. It's not that you can cut a window anywhere you want. So in that sense, timber, of course, is more flexible and more easy. But then on an industrial scale, you wouldn't be cutting a window anyway. And we clearly believe that in mass production of the houses, MGO SIP is helping us bring down the cost, even though for the interior finish right now, we're still sticking to timber. And indeed, for example, interior birch plywood boards that we use in high-end finish, their price has literally doubled since February. And however, for the facade options, we are moving away from timber. There are other excellent products like cementitious fiber boards, and they offer excellent U values and great resistance, and almost to no maintenance required. And we have an innovative product coming out of Canada, Calgary. That is a structural insulated panel which is already integrated with a facade, cementitious facade. So we are kind of simulating the visual of our original KODA, And I'm standing in a KODA. I'm just showing you what a KODA looks like.
So yeah, for everybody here, it's basically a 12 feet tall.
And we're really trying to replicate the visual of the KODA, but then at the same time remaining sustainable. And I think sustainability really is key, and we have to be thinking about not using toxic materials. And we're quite proud, actually. What has happened this year is that United Nations Environmental Programme has included KODA in their construction report as an example of sustainable construction. And it's very, very important for us to be doing the things in the right way, but also to be scaling up as quickly as possible. So the US is very, very exciting, especially in the Northeast, to start with.
Well, and again, I definitely look forward to working with you as the coming year comes, and it's so great to be able to catch up. And so hopefully we can do this again in another 6 months or another 9 months and see how far you've grown.
Oh, yes.
So
hopefully in person.
Yes, hopefully in person. I would love that. So wonderful. So thank you again for spending some time with us today. All right, thank you. And then I want to thank everybody who came to the first hybrid event that we have for this year. This was great. Our next event, I believe, is July 26th? 28th. And our host country will be Japan, and the host community will be Arlington Heights. So until then, Auf Wiedersehen.